Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're, going to be looking at the book of Genesis.
Okay.
With this writer, Newman.
Right.
And he's got some really interesting takes on the creation narrative.
Yeah.
And what it means for us today.
He really goes beyond, just the word-for-word reading of it.
Yeah.
He's really digging into the deeper meaning, the more
Yeah.
spiritual and philosophical stuff, which is really neat.
Okay, so not just telling us what happened,
Yeah.
but why it matters.
Exactly.
I like it. One thing he keeps coming back to is this whole image and likeness thing.
Yeah.
God creating humans in his image.
Right.
What's Newman's take on that?
So he's not just saying that humans have inherent value because God made us, which
Right.
you see a lot in a lot of interpretations.
For sure.
Newman's saying that God actually modeled humanity after himself.
Okay.
All our thoughts, our emotions, our ability to even connect with each other, it's
Yeah.
all a reflection of God's own nature.
Whoa. So we're like walking, talking mirrors of the
Yeah.
divine. That's a lot of pressure, don't you think?
That's exactly where Newman takes it.
Okay.
He says this whole image and likeness thing, it's not just a nice thought.
Yeah.
It comes with serious responsibility.
Okay.
He calls it a responsibility to manage creation as God's, representatives on earth.
Like we're supposed to be like mini gods or something.
Not quite. He uses the example of Adam naming the animals.
Okay.
And he says it's not about power over them.
Mhm.
It's about understanding and caretaking,
Right.
stewardship, not exploitation,
Okay, so we're not just reflecting God's image,
Yeah,
but we're supposed to be reflecting his actions too.
exactly.
Taking care of the planet, each
Yeah.
other, all that.
That's the gist.
Okay.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Newman says that this responsibility, this call to be stewards,
Yeah.
it wasn't about restricting human freedom.
Mm-hmm.
He actually saw it as the framework for our highest freedom.
Okay, I'm not going to lie, that sounds a little contradictory. How can responsibility make you more free?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And Newman tackles it head on with this whole tree of knowledge thing.
Okay, the forbidden fruit.
Yeah.
Knowledge of good and evil. Yeah, I know all that.
Right, but how does that tie into freedom?
Yeah, how does it...
Well, Newman says that tree, it wasn't some kind of divine test.
Okay.
It was more like a natural consequence of having free will.
Okay.
God gave humans choice,
Mm-hmm.
and that tree represented that choice.
Okay.
You can either trust God's wisdom, or you can define good and evil for yourself.
So by taking a bite, Adam and Eve were basically saying, thanks God, but we got this.
That's one way to put it, yeah. And Newman would probably agree with you there.
Okay.
He says it wasn't just about breaking a rule.
Right.
It was a total perspective shift.
Oh,
They
cool.
went from being connected to God to
Yeah.
seeing themselves as separate, capable of figuring things out on their own.
Right, which is when sin enters the picture.
Yeah, and everything kind of goes downhill from there.
Yeah. Cue the curses, the pain in childbirth, working for a living,
Right.
all the messy human stuff.
All of it.
Yeah.
And Newman talks about all that.
Okay.
But here's the thing. He doesn't see those things as punishments from God.
Okay.
He calls them the natural consequences of Adam and Eve's choice to live independently.
So it's less about God being angry
Right.
and more like, imagine trying to cram a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly.
It's just not going to work.
It's going to be a mess.
That's what happens when we try to live outside of God's design, according to Newman.
Exactly. And that mess is all over those early chapters of Genesis.
Like Cain and Abel.
Exactly. Talk about a consequence with some serious ripple effects.
Yeah.
Brother turning against brother.
Wow.
Newman calls it this raw, primal example of sin's destructive power.
Yeah.
It's intense.
Okay, so sin enters the picture, things get messy.
Right.
But
Yeah.
there's this whole other layer Newman talks about, this dual creation thing.
Yes. The physical and the spiritual creation happening at the same time.
Yeah, this is where it gets really, really cool.
Okay.
He sees this parallel
Okay.
between how God creates the physical universe in Genesis,
Mm-hmm.
step by step,
Right.
bringing order to chaos,
Yeah.
and then what he calls a spiritual creation
Okay.
that's unfolding within humanity.
Hold on. So it's like we're each carrying around our own little Genesis inside us.
Yes.
Our own universe of potential.
Exactly.
Just waiting to be shaped.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Okay.
And Newman uses those same images from the Genesis account,
Okay.
light and darkness, separating and defining to
Hmm.
describe this inner process.
So God separating the light from the darkness in Genesis.
Yeah.
That's kind of like us, telling truth from lies.
Yeah.
Setting boundaries.
Exactly. It's about making those distinctions in our own lives.
Wow.
So Newman's saying there's this ongoing spiritual formation that's happening within us.
This journey of becoming more and more aligned with God's image.
But isn't that kind of what we messed up in the first place back in the garden? Like, that's what the whole eating the fruit thing was about. Right.
You could say that.
Trying to be like God.
That's the thing with Newman. He doesn't see it as a straight line.
Okay.
You know? Like, messed up, game over.
Right.
He sees this beautiful potential in humanity.
Okay.
Despite the mess up.
Okay.
We still have that image of God within us.
Okay.
And that means we still have that capacity to grow, to change, to become more like what God intended us to be.
Okay, but how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to say we have this potential.
Right.
But it's another thing to actually do it.
That's where those different stages of creation come in.
Okay.
Remember how God creates the plants and the sea creatures and the birds all before humans?
Right.
Newman says that each of those stages has a spiritual parallel in our own lives.
Okay, now you're gonna have to break that down for me.
Oh, sure.
I'm with you so far.
Okay, so the plants.
Yeah.
Think of them as representing new beginnings.
Okay.
Those first sparks of faith.
Okay.
Or spiritual awareness. Just like a plant needs sunlight and water.
Yeah.
Our faith needs nurturing.
Right. We have to be intentional about it.
Exactly. We got to help it grow.
Got it. Okay.
And then you have the fish.
Okay, so what about them? Are we supposed to be swimming upstream or something?
Well, Newman talks about how fish, even though they're surrounded by water, they can still move through it.
Okay.
Find what they need to survive.
So it's about navigating life's challenges without getting totally swept away.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
And staying connected to our faith, even when things get tough.
Yeah, I like it.
And then there are the birds, soaring above everything, getting a different perspective.
So as we grow spiritually, we start to see things from a wider lens.
Yes. Newman calls it a God's eye view.
Okay.
Like we're being invited to rise above all the day-to-day drama and tap into a higher wisdom.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
All this talk about growth, though, and choice, it makes me wonder, where does free will fit into all of this? Like, if God's the one shaping us, do we really have a choice?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Newman is very clear. Free will is crucial to this whole process.
Okay.
He says that God could have easily created robots.
Okay.
You know, beings who just automatically did whatever he wanted.
Right.
But he didn't.
He created us.
Exactly. He created us messy, unpredictable humans.
Yeah.
Because it's our choices that give our lives meaning, that allow us to truly connect with God or not.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so powerful, right?
Exactly. We have real skin in the game.
It's kind of terrifying. So our choices, they really do matter.
They really do.
It's not just about, following the rules.
Right.
It's about, like, who we are.
Yeah.
At our core,
Ellie.
And that kind of takes me back to Cain and Abel.
Okay.
It's like their story is just this masterclass in what happens when you choose different paths.
Exactly.
Rely on yourself versus trusting in God.
That's exactly how Newman uses it.
Okay.
He talks about Cain trying to do it all on his own.
Right.
Letting that envy and resentment just eat him alive.
It's like a recipe for disaster.
It is.
For him and everyone around him.
Yeah. And then you have Abel.
Right. And even though his story is, doesn't end well.
Right.
There's this sense that he was like aligned with something bigger.
Absolutely. And it's really reflected in how Newman talks about sacrifice.
Okay.
He says it's not about giving up something you don't care about.
Right.
It's about surrendering your ego.
Okay.
Your need to be in control. It's about recognizing that we're part of something much, much bigger.
So letting go of our need to have all the answers.
Exactly.
To be the heroes of our own stories.
That's the heart of it. Newman says that's when we tap into this power that's beyond our understanding.
Okay.
This purpose that goes way beyond our limited human perspective.
It's funny how, like, letting go can actually lead you to finding yourself.
It is.
Like finding a strength you didn't even know you had.
Right. It's that paradox of faith that Newman captures so well.
Yeah.
True freedom comes from surrender.
Okay.
True joy comes from aligning yourself with God's will.
Okay.
Even when it doesn't make sense.
Right. On a human level.
Exactly.
It's about, like, embracing the mystery, right?
Yeah.
trusting that God's plan, even if we can't see it, is leading us towards something good.
Even amidst all the chaos and brokenness, it's still there.
And it's not a passive trust either.
No, it's not.
Newman's pretty clear about that.
It's active?
It's like we're actively participating in what God's doing.
In the ongoing work of creation and redemption.
So we're not off the hook just because we believe.
In fact, showing up every day,
messing up,
getting back up again,
doing it all again.
Exactly. We're in this incredible dance with God.
Okay.
And the steps are always changing.
Right.
But even when we stumble, even when we feel lost, God is still there.
Offering a hand.
Yeah, inviting us to rejoin the dance.
That's a beautiful image.
Yeah.
Newman's take on Genesis. It's not just some ancient history lesson.
No.
It's like a mirror.
Right.
Reflecting our own potential.
Yeah.
Our struggle.
Absolutely.
And our hope.
Our hope for healing and wholeness.
Wow, what a journey.
It really is.
From the creation of light to the fall of man. I mean, Newman's interpretations really add layers of meaning.
They do. They make it so relevant.
Yeah. To us today.
And this theme of dual creation, the physical and the spiritual happening at the same time, it's amazing.
It really makes you think about your own journey of faith and growth.
It does.
You know, the thing that really stuck with me was this idea that even after leaving Eden, humans, we still have that potential for a spiritual homecoming.
We do.
It's never too late to, reconnect with that original intention.
Yeah.
To seek that lost paradise.
Absolutely.
It's not about going back. It's about going deeper.
It really is.
So much to ponder there.
I know, right?
If you had to pick just one thing from Newman's writing to leave our listener with today.
One thing.
What would it be?
I think it would be the emphasis he puts on the why behind God's actions. There's a purpose behind the creation, the fall, even, suffering. Mm-hmm. It's an ongoing story.
Yeah.
And we have a role to play
in
how it unfolds.
Wow, I love that. All right, listener.
Okay, listener.
We'll leave you with that thought to ponder.
Yes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.
Keep exploring, keep questioning.
Keep diving deep.
And keep diving deep into the knowledge that really matters.